We have overtaken the onion. If you know what the onion is, they're old, you know. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to get up in front of you guys. And I know I'm about to say something, I'm about to quote someone, and I think you all agree with this quote. You're going to agree with this, but this was actually said a long time ago. It was said in 1911 by G.K. Chesterton. He said, "The world has become too absurd to be satirized." In 1911. There are a lot of things that have happened since 1911. I'm sure you can probably think of a few of them. I'm actually going to show you a few examples just to kind of jog your memory. I'll flip through these quickly. I know you guys are digging into your salads, but if you want to just take a look at these slides, I don't know if you remember this at all. Fiery but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. There are cars on fire behind this man, and they're calling this a mostly peaceful scenario. This is the state of the media in the United States today with CNN. Transgender weightlifter Laurel Hubbard named Sportswoman of the Year. These are real headlines, guys. This is not the Babylon Bee. Washington University creates segregated housing specifically for black students. Fighting racism with segregation? It's a real headline. Review analysis. Stanford students are more likely to wear masks on bicycles than helmets. Smart kids go to Stanford, right? Thought so anyway. M&M's updates mascots to represent a more dynamic and progressive world. Their icon mascots are getting an updated look and personalities and backstories to align with the fact that consumers value inclusion and belonging more than ever. Have you ever, I don't know about you guys, but up until 2021, what year are we in? I would not eat M&M's because they were just hate candy, right? They weren't inclusive enough. But now, those boots are gone and she's wearing regular sneakers and it's acceptable. Can men get pregnant? It's a very important question these days. Can men get pregnant? Is it possible? This is healthline.com. This is not the Babylon Bee. This is healthline.com. Is it possible? Yes. It's possible for men to become pregnant and give birth to children of their own. In fact, it's probably a lot more common than you might think. In order to explain, we'll need to break down some common misconceptions about how we understand the term man. The people who are going to correct your misconceptions are telling you that men can get pregnant. That's wild. So this is one of the ways I talk often about the ways that comedy is being canceled or just made impossible. And this first way is that the world has become so absurd it's almost impossible to satirize. These headlines that you're reading, like we wake up in the morning and we read the headlines and we try to think of a joke that we can make on the back of these headlines. And what we're trying to do is exaggerate the truth to make a point. But the truth is so absurd, it's like trying to parody a parody. How do you parody that which is already a parody of itself? That becomes very difficult. It's one of the challenges of doing satire in this day and age. What I'm going to show you here, these are Babylon Bee headlines that later came true as fulfilled prophecies. So I'm going to start with the Babylon Bee headline, and then I'm going to show you one that came true. And the point of this is to illustrate that doing satire in an insane world is so difficult because these headlines, they don't stay satire for very long. In some cases, it's a matter of hours. This first one is a great example. CNN criticizes Israel Arab leaders for shaking hands in the middle of a pandemic. This was a satirical piece that we put out during the Abraham Accords when Trump was having these meetings, and this is how we thought CNN might cover this, right? We're trying to put ourselves in CNN's head. We're like, what are they going to think is newsworthy about this event? Look at the timestamp. I highlighted it for you. This is 2:23 p.m. on September 15th. This is a real headline. Same day, 5 hours later. White House largely disregards coronavirus precautions during Abraham Accord signing. It's like they plagiarized us. They took it right off our website. It's exactly how they decided, because CNN's too easy. That's too easy. I can't even brag about that. That's easy. Progressive Church announces new drag queen Bible story hour. That's a Babylon Bee headline. It's a Babylon Bee headline. It was a Babylon Bee headline when it was written. It's kind of faded there. You can see it was written in 2021. What was that? June? In June. Lutheran church hosts drag queen prayer time for children. This is a real headline. This is a real one that came a matter of months later. Keeps happening repeatedly over and over again. BLM rioters awarded Nobel Peace Prize. This is our attempt to make a joke, right? It started out as, it's supposed to be a joke. Black Lives Matter movement nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Norwegian MP cites global impact of BLM in raising awareness and consciousness of racial injustice. California bill prohibits stores from selling toys that don't actively confuse children's sexuality. Believable when it was written in February of 2021. Here's a real story. October of 2021, California first state to mandate gender-neutral toy aisles for large retailers. This keeps happening over and over and over again. Another Newsom one. He's named U-Haul Salesperson of the Year. Fox Business Story. Californians fleeing Texas so fast U-Haul runs out of trucks for them. So we track these in a spreadsheet. We have 65 of these. 65 so far that started out as a joke and then became real. So this is the challenge of doing satire in an insane and absurd world. This one's funny. So this started out as satire. We wrote this in 2019. Trump says, I've done more for Christianity than Jesus himself. I mean, I don't know. I could see Trump saying that. You know, he says some crazy stuff. The left shared this like crazy. It went viral. New York Times reporters were sharing this piece. I want to fast forward to a matter of a few months ago. This is a real tweet. Trump is currently calling it a flashpoint, a prophecy-focused conservative talk show on Kenneth Copeland's Victory Network. Nobody has done more for Christianity or for evangelicals or for religion itself than I have. Prophecy fulfilled. Okay, now this one. Not on my watch. DeSantis signs executive order that green M&M must still be sexy in Florida. It has not been fulfilled yet, but I'm planting a seed. We want our sexy green M&Ms. We don't want to give that up. You could preserve that for us. So as you can see, it's hard to do satire because the world's so crazy. These things keep coming true. Now, we're often criticized for this. We actually take a lot of heat for this. People say, well, your jokes are too believable, right? That's the problem, right? We're making a mistake. We're making jokes that are too believable. Have you ever heard the saying, it's funny because it's true? Or there's a grain of truth in every joke? The reason people say that is because, the joke would completely miss the mark, and it wouldn't be funny if it was so detached from reality you couldn't possibly believe it was true. So your joke has to ride on the back of the truth in the direction the truth is pointing. That's what good satire does. So if it's believable, it's good satire. If it comes true, it's great satire. That's the Babylon Bee. Now, there's another way that comedy is under attack right now, and it's this whole weird thing where people are trying to limit what you can and can't say, what you can and can't joke about. You've seen what's happened with Dave Chappelle, right? And some of the comments that he's made and some of the flack that he's taken. There's this weird effort to try to censor what comedians can say and try to put them in a box and say, well, there's all these things that you can't joke about. Comedians are literally trying to tiptoe through a minefield right now, trying to make jokes that are socially acceptable, that aren't going to upset people and offend people. Everybody wants their safe space. You're not allowed to punch down, they say. This is actually a new policy of Facebook's. Satire is allowed. We've been told we can stay. Thank you, Facebook, we can stay. Satire is allowed, but you're not allowed to punch down. Well, what does that mean, punch down? You're not allowed to make fun of people who are beneath you. Can you imagine, just for a second, I want you guys to all think to yourself. Imagine thinking to yourself, I can't joke about those people. They're beneath me. Like, can you think of a more condescending thought than that? I can't joke about those people. They're beneath me. So what would be considered punching down if I made a joke? Well, if I made a joke about women, that would be punching down, presumably. I'm told that that would be punching down because women are beneath. Are women beneath me? My wife doesn't think so. I don't think so. This is a really funny thing that they're trying to do with this power structure stuff. And I want to make a point here that I think is very important. You know, they tell you that you can tell who holds all the power in a society based on who you can criticize, who you can and can't criticize, and who you can and can't make fun of. If you have both the will and the power to punish anybody who criticizes or makes fun of you, then you're not oppressed. You're not marginalized. You're the oppressor in that case. And that's the situation that we're in. It's actually the opposite of what they're trying to present it as. The people that you're not allowed to make fun of, the people that you get punished for making fun of, hold all of the power. They really do. So they're not marginalized. In fact, the people who are marginalized are the ones who risk getting deplatformed for just saying what they think, saying what they believe. They're the ones who are always at risk, who have to watch what they say, who have to self-censor. Every time we censor ourselves, we're doing the tyrant's work for him. We are doing the tyrant's work for him. So we need to... That was brilliant. It was brilliant. We need to be bold truth tellers, unafraid to speak the truth boldly, and never, ever do the tyrant's work for him and censor ourselves. I want to tell you there is another way that comedy is under attack today, and it's through this kind of direct form of censorship. It's weird the way that it happens with the Babylon Bee, though, because censorship oftentimes manifests itself in different ways, but with us it comes with fact-checking. Have you guys ever seen any of your fact-checked articles? I don't know if you've seen this one. CNN purchases industrial-sized washing machine to spin the news before publishing it. I want a show of hands. Do you think I should release in our store on our website a washing machine with CNN's logo on it so that we could actually sell it? Like, would you buy that? There might be people who would buy this. I don't know. I could sell that for probably a couple $1,000s. That was fact-checked by Snopes and rated false. We were then threatened by Facebook. They sent us a message, an official notice, that said, you will be demonetized and potentially removed from this platform if you continue to publish false information. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, jokes were either funny or not. Like, you laughed or you didn't. They didn't have a truth rating, right? You didn't go to a comedy show, and when someone made a joke, stand up and point at them and yell real angrily and say, that was false. Why are you misinforming us? They're jokes. Laugh or don't, but they're either funny or they're not. This one was great. CNN praises Taliban for wearing masks during attack. I love the chyron there at the bottom. Taliban fighters responsibly wearing masks. Now, the reason this had to be fact-checked, do you guys know the reason why they say this has to be fact-checked is because there's a threshold that's crossed where there are so many people who are asking, is this true? Did this really happen, Snopes? Could you please tell me, is this real? When you cross that threshold of enough people asking for that, that's when they decide to fact-check it. Now, with that last one, the washing machine, I don't think that anybody believed that was true. They fact-checked that just because they hate us. This one, there were a lot of people who were wondering if CNN actually said this. They fact-checked it and rated it false. This joke was false. It was dangerous misinformation. Ocasio-Cortez appears on The Price is Right, guesses everything is free. Now, I'm sorry, I think that's very believable. Honestly, I apologize for this one. I retract it. We should not have published this. This is fake news. This is misleading. Again, this was rated false. They looked into it. Ocasio-Cortez never appeared on The Price is Right. This is in fact a photoshopped image. She wasn't really there, and she didn't guess that everything was free. She might have, had she been there. Ninth Circuit Court overturns death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. USA Today fact-checked this piece. They didn't say, oh, this came from a satire site. This is a joke. It's funny. They rated it false. They said this is a false claim. And they did their research, by the way. They cited 15 sources in their lengthy refutation of this joke. 15 sources. They made phone calls. They went to the Ninth Circuit Court's website. They actually say this in their article. We visited the Ninth Circuit Court's website. We checked it out. We don't see any reference of overturning Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. They're rating our jokes false. This is just a silly joke. It's as silly as the. What does it even mean to overturn somebody? Is that a resurrection? What is that? How do you overturn a death? It's absurd. It's insane. It's one of the ways that they're attacking us, though. And I'm asked all the time, is it discouraging? Because this doesn't just happen with like the fact-checking and the social media networks and everything. It's New York Times recently, I'll quote this verbatim, they said that we are a far-right misinformation site that sometimes traffics in misinformation under the guise of satire. Those are their words, exactly. It's verbatim. We traffic in misinformation under the guise, based on what, New York Times? Based on what? These are just silly jokes. They don't like the jokes that we're making. We're over the target, honestly. And I've been asked all the time. I've been asked, are you discouraged? Does it get you down that you're getting attacked all the time, that you're getting fact-checked? Well, no. For one thing, it's fun and it's funny. And, you know, we share this stuff and we get a lot of likes and social media engagement out of it. But if you're being attacked, and I know you know this personally, if you're being attacked, you're doing something right. It means you're doing something right. Imagine it, I said this to my staff because my staff was really concerned when the New York Times is saying this, like, are we gonna get shut down by Facebook? What are we gonna do about this? Well, first of all, we threatened to sue them and they retracted it, which was a big win. But what I tell them all the time is, if the New York Times was writing positive pieces about us, that's when I would be concerned. The fact that they're attacking us, you know, that's kind of, wear that like a badge of honor. I don't think the New York Times should be saying anything positive about us. So, you know, my response to that is, you know, it is encouraging when they're attacking you, and the other side of it is, they're actually only amplifying your voice when they try to silence it. And I use the example of Dave Chappelle. I can now use the example of Joe Rogan. This is a more recent one. You guys there are probably people who had never heard of Joe Rogan, even though he's extremely popular, until they tried to silence him. Same thing with Dave Chappelle. It's called the Streisand effect. Have you guys heard of that? It's not very popular. Maybe none of you have. Barbara Streisand tried to suppress aerial footage of her home that had been published on a web page somewhere that had been viewed 6 times. So she files a lawsuit. She doesn't want these photos to be seen by anybody. And the lawsuit generates media attention, and now they've been viewed millions of times. So this is now, there's a Wikipedia page about this thing called the Streisand effect. You can go look it up. It's the backfiring that happens when you try to shut people up, when you try to stamp something out, when you try to erase it, when you try to censor it, you draw more attention to it. Now, obviously, that happens more with people who have more prominent voices. You know, if you have a platform already and someone tries to silence you, it draws more attention. If you don't have any platform at all, you know, we're in a fortunate position where if somebody tries to attack us or censor us or come after us, we can make a little bit of noise about it. And then the media might pay attention, and Tucker Carlson might have me on to talk about it. Not everybody has that opportunity. But generally speaking, when you try to suppress something and you try to shut somebody up, you draw more attention to what they were trying to say. And all that you're signaling to people when you try to cut someone's tongue out is that you fear what that man might say. And so I think it's only something that should be encouraging to any person in this room or anybody who's involved in the conservative media world or anybody who's just trying to speak truth to culture like we are, that when you're being attacked and when they're trying to silence you, it's because they fear what you might say, and their efforts to silence you are only going to amplify your voice. So I think that's very, very encouraging for us. So I don't think that Dave Chappelle is losing. I don't think that Joe Rogan is losing. I think that their profile is only being raised by the attacks on them. And for our part, you know, when I think about like the importance of what we're doing and the necessity of what we're doing, we're not saving lives here. You know, we're not doing anything that's like, sometimes people come up to me and they're just like, oh my God, what you're doing is so important, it's so important. And sometimes I kind of feel a little bit humbled by that, and I'm like, look, we just make jokes on the internet, but there is something more to it than that, to some extent. There is something more to it than that. And I quote C.S. Lewis oftentimes when I'm thinking about the importance of this, when he said, and I don't know which work this is from, but he said that good philosophy must exist if for no other reason, because bad philosophy needs to be answered. Good philosophy must exist if for no other reason, because bad philosophy needs to be answered. I think satire is necessary for exactly the same reason. There are bad ideas that need to be answered. And one way of answering them is to ridicule them. One way of answering them is to mock them and to show how absurd they are, how stupid they are, how harmful they are, before they can take root in people's minds and hearts, especially in the minds and hearts of young people. And I think that what we're doing along those lines is very effective. And I think that the evidence of its effectiveness is in how vehemently they object to it and how aggressively they attack us. So my call to everybody in this room would be to continue to speak truth boldly. I mean, what we're trying to do is speak truth to culture. Our mission, if I could summarize it into a few words, would be to ridicule bad ideas. And that sounds negative, doesn't it? To ridicule bad ideas? But you know what the most loving thing you can do for another person is to speak the truth to them, right? When someone tells you that a girl can become a boy if they want to, and you make a joke about that. You make a joke about, or that somebody can just identify as whatever they want to be. We did a headline about how a man identified as a 5-year-old and hit a game-winning grand slam in a t-ball game. And the left got very angry about that. But what we're getting at there is we're trying to speak the truth. We're trying to say this is absurd. You can't identify it as anything that you want. And if you actually think about it, if you can identify as anything that you want, then why can't that man identify as a 5-year-old and hit grand slams in t-ball? Why can't he? What's preventing him from doing that? And making that joke in that way communicates that truth. And so I think it's important that we continue to do that. Speak the truth boldly. Never, ever do the tyrant's work for him and censor himself and censor yourself. I think that's all I've got for you guys. It's a moral good, I think, to tell the truth. Thank you. Thank you very much.